Welcome to Crime Obsession, your true crime talk show. I'm your host, Traci Stumpf, and this episode, we're taking a look at what makes true crime podcasts so addictive. I'm gonna be talking with Catherine Townsend, the host and producer of the mesmerizing podcast, Hell and Gone, and then I'm heading to the streets to talk to you, the true crime junkies. Join the conversation on the Crime Obsession Facebook group. I wanna know your thoughts on the stories we're covering and the cases you're tracking. Now let's take a look at some crime headlines that caught my attention. It's crime time. Joining me to discuss these stories is a voice you probably recognize from her hit podcast, White Wine True Crime, Caitlin Cutt. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so our first story is the case of the murdered mother, Kelsey Barrett. Details continue to emerge and they are getting darker and darker. Here's a quick summary. Kelsey went missing last Thanksgiving and police eventually arrested her fiance for alleged murder. Now, I'm purposely not using his name because honestly, screw him. He doesn't deserve to be named. You, I'm sure, are all over this one as a mom yourself.
Yeah, and I think what's been interesting about this case is the way it's unfolded, especially through the mistress. She knew a lot more in the beginning than she was letting on.
She was definitely an accomplice in this story because she helped clean up the crime scene. He called her and was like, there's a mess for you to come clean. And she came down, drove overnight from Idaho to, literally clean the walls.
Well, what do you think about the fact that she, in this plea deal, says that she left DNA evidence behind to help the investigation?
I mean, thank you. Thank you so much. It's so helpful. Also helpful, calling the cops. All right, a bit of good news for you guys, which I know we could all use after that. The Newport Beach Police Department have finally made an arrest in the cold case of 11-year-old Linda Ann O'Keefe after more than 45 years.
Actually, it was unique what they did. It was on the anniversary of her disappearance, but they live tweeted
the day
timeline.
Yeah.
Almost like taking a creative license to this experience.
And the cool thing is they use the internet and ancestral DNA, and I think this is gonna change the way we approach cold cases.
I completely agree.
And now it's mugshot of the week time, where I scour the internet for the best mugshot, and without further ado, let me introduce to you Jonathan Washburn, who allegedly hit a man in the head with a skateboard after he took a picture of his unique hairstyle. Wow!
Hairstyle?
Styles. And the irony of it all is that he hit a guy over the head with a skateboard for taking his photo, and then he ends up getting his photo taken by the cops.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's a nice professional headshot, and I think he could use it on Tinder. Caitlin Cutt, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thanks, girl.
You're so great. Podcast subscriptions have become a badge of honor for true crime fans. One podcast that I just binged was Hell and Gone. It's the story of 22-year-old Rebecca Gould, who was brutally murdered in Arkansas 14 years ago. Now, although many signs point to her boyfriend, Casey, the police ruled him out as a suspect. The case went cold. That is, until my next guest began hunting for answers, and let me tell you, there were no shortages of targets for this case. Here to talk about her hit podcast is the journalist and private investigator, Catherine Townsend. All right, Catherine Townsend, before we dive into talking about this podcast that has the world just shook, let's talk about your journey into true crime.
Okay, well, God, where do I start? Okay, since I was a little girl, I grew up in Arkansas, I really was obsessed with solving mysteries. Later, I moved to Los Angeles and decided that I was going to get a private investigator license. So 3 years, 6,000 hours, did that, but always kept coming back to this case, the Rebecca Gould case that I did the podcast about. And it was one of the things that really inspired me to become an investigator in the first place.
It's a case that hooks you immediately.
I think so.
What drew you to it?
Well, Rebecca Gould, the victim, her sister was very good friends with my sister. And so every time I would come home over the years, I would hear a little bit about the case. And everyone in town seemed to have a theory about who did it, right? And everyone was so certain about their theory. And, over the years, I start to wonder, and I've said this a million times, but if everyone knows who did it, then why hasn't the case been solved? And so I started asking questions, and, there are a lot of challenges with this case because no one's been arrested or charged. It's a remote area, which literally parts of it are, it's like being in a horror movie because it's so remote and there's no cell reception, stuff like that.
Yeah, so here's a question for you. How do you keep yourself safe in those situations? Because just as a listener, I was terrified for you.
I think a lot of it comes down to common sense. If I'm meeting someone I don't know, I would always try to meet them in a public place. I would take someone with me often, always let people know where I'm going. Honestly, a lot of it was sort of just a lot of investigative experience and knowing what I could get into, and some was actually luck.
What do you say to people who think that nobody but law enforcement is capable of investigating a case?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I would say, when someone tells you you should not ask a question, you definitely should ask the question. I really respect people in law enforcement. They have a really tough job. I work with a lot of them. With some of these particular police officers, I felt like we were in a situation where they were trying to discourage me from asking questions. And so I think any investigator can fall victim to, instead of following the evidence, they make the evidence fit their theory instead of the other way around. And that's like the cardinal rule of investigation. And that's why fresh pair of eyes can be really good for these cases.
Now, you're the daughter of a police officer, right?
Well, he's actually a reserve deputy sheriff.
Do you feel like that changed your perspective on this case?
Not in the beginning. It was always, he was sort of in the background. He's very smart, so I'd bounce ideas off him. But he didn't get involved at all, really, until I found myself in a situation where I had this witness who was giving me this, what I considered crucial information about the case. A couple days later, I'm talking to my dad, and we're having a beer, And I said, "Dad, are you allowed to take witness statements?" And he's like, "I don't know. I think so. I'll ask the sheriff." And so literally, he then became part of the case. Then he's helping take witness statements. And we were willing to do whatever it took.
So, Catherine, where in the world are you right now?
I'm back in Mountain View. I'm at my dad's house, and we're working on season 2 of Hell and Gone.
Ooh, season 2.
I will say we are starting to work on a new case. I can't say too much about it. It's in the same area as Rebecca's case. And just today, we interviewed, okay, I'm not going to cry. We interviewed the victim's mom.
Oh.
This is a 30-year-old case, 16-year-old girl. The victim's father had been carrying the torch, for a long time, and he passed away. And the mom, looked at us and said, he spent his entire life, like this is his life's work, and that she put it in a big box and she gave it to us. And she's like, "We're counting on you to," and that makes it all worth it. That makes it all worth it. It really does.
Are you allowed to say what case you're going to be following?
I am not quite allowed to yet. I can, but I will say it's season 2. It's going to be coming out probably in May, June. Okay. It looks like it's going to be soon. It's also the Arkansas State Police case, so I'm sure they're thrilled to see me back.
What about the Rebecca Gold case? Is that on hold?
No, we're still working on it. In fact, we've recorded a couple of updates.
Oh, nice.
And we have some very good information that there was someone else at the home that day. And we're digging deep into that, and it's complicated because this person and many people in this case tangentially work in law enforcement. So we're literally getting into the hornet's nest with this.
God bless. What podcast are you listening to?
Well, so I have a few. I love Teacher's Pet. I've listened to a little bit of Bear Brook. I've listened to, obviously, Up and Vanish, both seasons. I just started listening to Monster. I like a mix. I also really love podcasts like My Favorite Murder that are, that have a sense of humor about, crime. And I know sometimes people get funny about that, but the truth is, sometimes you've got to laugh or cry in these situations. And after a day like we had today, I literally just said to the producer, I'm like, we need to crack open a beer and just sit and chill. It's very heavy emotionally.
Catherine Townsend, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for bringing us to season 2. I know we're all very excited about it. And make sure you keep us posted in the Facebook group with any Rebecca updates you have.
I promise I will.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for all your support.
Thank you. Now, I'm always looking to step up my podcast game, so I decided to get recommendations directly from the true crime fans. Watch. So you are a podcast fan.
Yeah, I guess.
What's your favorite true crime podcast?
Serial was good. Serial.
What's your favorite podcast?
My Favorite Murder?
The best.
Yeah.
Have you listened to Bear Brook?
Not.
It's about these kids who found a body in a barrel out in the woods. What would you do if you found a body?
If I found a body, I want to say that I would report it to the police right away. I know I'd be the first suspect though, because that makes me question what I actually would do.
Do you have any true crime podcasts that you think I should listen to? Great answer.
Oh, I loved S-Town. Yeah,
That was really engaging and really good, right?
and it was surprising.
Yeah.
So,
And it was like you thought it was going one way. Yeah.
I took a left turn. Yes.
The definition of surprising.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple of questions for our show? You're so beautiful.
to talk to you so much, but I'm running.
I know. Do you like true crime?
I love true crime.
What's your favorite podcast in true crime?
The one where they talk.
It's going well.
My favorite murder podcast. It's always just so interesting how people can either get away with it or they get caught, or the mistakes that they make after you kind of see what you would have done differently.
What you would have done. All right, until next time, my friends, thank you to Catherine. Make sure you stay tuned for season 2 of Helen Gone. Thank you to Caitlin. Check out White Wine True Crime. And thank you to you for joining us once again. And remember, my friends, the conversation doesn't have to end here. Did we miss a podcast that you love? Do you have a theory on Rebecca's murder? Let us know in the Facebook Crime Obsession group using the hashtag MyCrimeObsession. We'll see you later. Bye.